Welcome back to the Big Blue Lifers podcast. I'm Mr. U. That's Jess. The Big Blue Lifers are in the house, back for another round of Big Blue activity where we can find it. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too shabby, man. Not too shabby at all. Man. Well, there is a few things we can talk about from Big Blue Giants world. I think we're just ready for. Well, I'm not even gonna say camp. I think I'm just ready for preseason at this point. Really see some ball of any sort. So preseason games on my television would be a welcome sight. I can't wait to get there. So got to get through this part of the offseason and then camp first and then see what's happening. I've been kind of obsessing about the 53-man roster, but if we have time, we can get into it, man. Because I'm like, the math is just not mathing up for me. There are guys that I think should win out, but somebody that's really good is going to get bumped. And I don't know if practice squad's going to work for all of these guys that might not make the cut, but we'll get into that, man, when time permits, if it does permit tonight, man. But where do you want to start off tonight, man?
Well, there's one topic that we have kind of written down that I think kind of, for me at the very least, is very intertwined with this. I don't want to call it a headline because it feels like it's giving it too much credit based on the quote itself. But this morning, I'm not sure if you saw, but there was some discussion that kind of came out regarding Andrew Thomas's status for week one. He was quoted saying, let me find it here. I'm feeling good, just taking my time with it. Don't really have a projection right now, but I'm doing everything that the trainers are telling me, and hopefully I'm ready to go, he said, in regards to being asked if, hey, you're going to be ready come Washington. So, and that is like, what will it take for the Giants to have an explosive offense? That's what we kind of had written down to talk about here, because as is the case with the Giants, there's been all this talk about the defense, and there's been plenty of talk about the offense, but specifically, the explosiveness of the offense is, going to be heavily tied to Russell Wilson. He loves taking those deep shots, struggles with a bit of the intermediate stuff, but, we'll get there when we get there. But for me, for the Giants to have an explosive offense, it comes down to that offensive line. We're going to have to be able to run the ball so that way defenses have to respect the run, and then we have to be able to hold up and pass pro. And the Giants' entire offensive line seems dependent on whether or not Andrew Thomas is out there. I think Andrew Thomas is the MVP of the team. Not Dex, not Malik Neighbors. I don't even think it's Russell Wilson. It is Andrew Thomas. Forget who the quarterback is back there. It is Andrew Thomas, because as he goes, the offensive line goes. When healthy, he is a top 5 left tackle in football. He just hasn't been healthy. Yeah. Ironically, his one healthy year was 2022, and we made the playoffs that year. The offensive line didn't look abhorrent. It still wasn't exactly respectable. It still wasn't exactly good. But it wasn't, historically terrible like it is and has been when Andrew Thomas isn't there. So that's my answer to the question. What will it take for the Giants offense to be explosive? A healthy Andrew Thomas is my answer.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. He hasn't been healthy, so we're kind of hedging our bets a little bit on that. Nobody's talking about us having a potent offense anyway, except diehards that are just feeling pretty confident because we have viable options at quarterback now, which can't be disputed. I was really looking at that Jay Hudson III pickup for us. I know that he can play 3 different positions, so that's the kind of depth that the Giants seem to love having. If Thomas is out for any amount of games, pretty sure he's going to get the nod there. I guess I just wonder what kind of productivity he's going to bring to the table. If he's confident in any way, perhaps if Thomas is out for a short period, it'll be doable. But honestly, not seeing him on the field and not seeing him in real game situations, it's kind of hard to really talk about it. So we're just talking about our stud potentially not being there. Uh, my answer is a little bit different, though. I agree with what you said, though. This is not even a dispute at all. If Andrew Thomas is not playing up to par and just being productive, only bad things can result from that. But I really like what's happening potentially at the quarterback position. I've been saying it routinely, and I'm not going to get off of that horse no matter what happens in the offseason or in camp when there's no pads and whatnot. The games that I saw, I got to see more Giants game in this region than I normally do, which was a blessing for me, except for the fact that they weren't playing very well. So that part wasn't a blessing. I was seeing my favorite team play. And a lot of the games were marginal in the in victory, and a lot of people I was attributing to the quarterback play. I thought that guys are open for touchdowns or in the red zone, and they're not getting the ball. That could present a problem when they get down to the bottom line of your final score because you're losing points on the field and you're punting incessantly. So the inability to get the ball down the field, I think, was a big difference. I made predictions in the past about how many games I thought that would amount to. I won't rehash that, but we could have won significantly more games with effective quarterback play. It doesn't have to even be elite, just effective quarterback play. So for me, the Andrew Thomas pick by you, I'm going to say if the quarterback play is decent, the ball's getting to guys that are open, which guys are open. Neighbors and Slay are open. Wandale might be open. Who knows? I'm not even sure. But if you get the ball to those guys and move the ball down the field, taking the pressure off of that O-line throughout the course of a 17, 18 game stretch or whatever, yeah, it's going to be a big part of the offense being quote unquote potent and explosive. That's my take on that one. What are you thinking?
I mean, I can't disagree with it. I certainly can't. There are plenty of quarterbacks. Joe Burrow last year, terrible offensive line, but you had competent quarterback play. He was able to get the ball to the weapons, and he let his guys make plays.
Do you want that, though?
I would prefer to have a good offensive line.
No, I mean, let me rephrase my question. Because he threw for almost 5,000 yards. I didn't think that was a good thing. I said it on multiple shows. If you're throwing that much, that means that something else is lacking. And everything's being rested on your arm. And multiple 5,000-yard seasons are not good for this. Your moneymaker. So you would have a balance there. They didn't have much of their balance was like probably 70-30, maybe even 80-20. Chase Brown was awesome, but he got his in short yardage situations, and most of his numbers, fantasy and real life numbers, were within the 20-yard line, the majority of them. So do you want to have a quarterback throwing a lot, or do you want to have a balance of an effective running game, better season from Tracy than what we had last year from him? Do you want to have that instead, or do you want our quarterback throwing for 4,000 yards this season? Which is your preference?
For me, I think I would rather have a balance of 60-40. I think in today's NFL, you have to be able to throw the ball, and the offenses are much more on the arms of the quarterback than the legs of the running back than they used to be. But I think if we're getting even like 10% better Tracy than we got last year, combined with, I would assume, like twice as good quarterback play, Daniel Jones to Russell Wilson, you would think there's going to be some upgrade there.
There is going to be, man. There is. I'm going on record about, yes, it's going to be an upgrade. Absolutely.
It has to be, right? Like, I was a big DJ defender, mainly because I just wanted to see, our guys succeed. But, that's not what we're here to talk about. But in terms of like what I want to see for the balance of this offense is much more, like that we're not running it because we can't throw it. You know what I mean? Like so much of when Saquon was here, we were running it Not necessarily because it was the most productive thing, but because it was our only means of like even semi-consistent, good, positive yardage. And even then, that wasn't great. So if we are getting, some good consistent running game and a good consistent passing game, even if it isn't the most explosive thing in the world, I think that a 60-40 balance is what I'd be looking for.
Yeah.
And again, to me, that, and I think you agree, that all starts in the trenches.
Yeah. Speaking of the trenches, I mean, I felt like I said, I didn't get to see every single game in full. But I feel like part of that running game situation when Saquon was with us was the Giants trying, and I mean trying with finger quotes, trying to reestablish their identity in that in the run game. The problem, again, like you mentioned, was the trenches, though, and there was not a lot of holes opening up. When Broccoli had him, he hit him. You know what I'm saying? And they were for big gains, but it was not as prolific as we would like to see it. So it kind of, it's kind of a little 50-50 split there. It was decent from what he could do talent-wise, but not a lot of holes to get him through. So yeah, those things make a lot of sense. Where we going next?
So I think in terms of, like more offseason news that kind of came out, a guy that I don't think a lot of people have talked about for the Giants in this draft is Thomas Fidone. Or is it Fidone? I think it's Fidone.
I think it's Fidone, yeah.
Fidone. Tight end, 7th round draft pick, was at tight end university. And apparently Travis Kece had some nice things to say about him. And I think you and I went when we had Nick Filato on, we were talking about that, some of these groups that we're going to be watching. And one of the groups that you got to give you the credit for this, had been, harping on as like a position to watch, a position of weakness, is the tight end room. And I was saying, I think I think Theo Johnson has a lot of potential. I think Bellinger has been solid when given the opportunity. Nothing special, certainly, but I don't know where like this got to phase Bellinger out of the offense kind of came from this team. We have Mannertz, who's an excellent run blocker, and now we got this project in the 7th round. And I loved the pick coming out of the draft because for years I had been, saying that what the Giants should do is what I think the Eagles have done, Chiefs have done, Ravens have done, a lot of these better teams have done, is you get to that 6th, 7th round, and you're not looking for guys necessarily to be immediate starters. Take a flyer on that ridiculously high upside athletic freak of nature, and that's what the Eagles did with Milata, who might be the best left tackle outside of Trent Williams right now. They took a flyer on a guy in one of the late rounds because he has all the physical tools, but, didn't produce in college or something. There's a guy that they want to see, hey, can we mold you into anything? No one's going to get on you for taking a flyer on a 7th round pick that doesn't work out. And, again, it's not like tight end university is some true measure, but, it's nice to hear that, like this guy that we took this flyer on, who knows, maybe he starts turning heads. Maybe he fights for that tight end 2 spot. Like if you can get that out of a 7th round pick, sign me up.
Real talk. I love it. And I definitely did have my eye on the tight end room for a lot of reasons. I was really a big Bellinger guy, and I kind of felt let down after last season. I'm like, dude, you got all the potential. I'm pretty sure I was talking about the 53-man roster and kind of my obsession with it the past several days. I know we're not holding more than 3 tight ends on this roster, for sure about that. I think Theo Johnson's already been penciled in as the tight end 1. Fantastic catch rate from him for somebody who is pretty much going into his 2nd season. Big frame. He's struggling over smaller defenders, which is what you want. Bellinger, he's probably going to be projected as a tight end 2, no matter what. I mean, he has a very good catch rate, converting catches, 82.4%. So he's probably going to be in the mix as far as getting balls thrown at him, especially the Giants are employing any kind of two tight end sets, which they might. I think that Fidone has I think he gets in this three tight ends on the active roster. I don't think Manhurst is going to make it. I think he's fighting to even hold that spot. I think Fidone has that kind of potential, not because of what Kece said. I mean, it's cool that he, thought well of him, but Fidone is or Fidone. I think it's Fidone, but I'm saying Fidone. I grew up around Italian guys, so there's that part in my head too. But he's definitely probably going to be the main blocking tight end on the roster. So there's no way that he doesn't make it. If the Giants hold four tight ends, I think Manhurst is going to be the one that's going to be on the fringe. I think for the one gets in, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get in. So I like him there. It's cool that Kece saw something in him because he didn't have to give him any kind of props or anything. So I know tight end university is not really a real place, I guess you could say, but you're talking about how extremely athletic he was and how he moved well and did great at the top of his routes. I mean, that's somebody who is considered to be a legend still playing, bound for the Hall of Fame. He's probably he's the third in the history in receptions and third in receiving yards. So he knows what he's talking about. So we said that Fidone looks really good. Our tight end coaches need to make sure that they get the best out of him because he clearly has potential. So, love the compliment. I think that's great. I think he's going to do well. At this point, even if we hold three tight ends, even if we hold four, he's probably going to be a reserve guy coming in. But I feel like Bellinger better hold on to his hats and not screw up. Because Fidone is, I feel like he got a little bit of fire behind him. He may end up taking that spot. And ideally, that's a good thing. I'd rather have Bellinger with what I was saying is a very, very good rate of converting catches. I'd rather have him as a tight end 3 than the tight end 2. So Fidone is good, but he's good with his hands as well. He's good at catching balls, and he's a blocker as well. What else do you want, especially on this kind of team? So
he was
another compliment from Kece
because of injuries, but he measured in at 6'5", 240, runs a 4.7 40-yard dash, 35, 36-inch vert. Big guy, strong, fast. Not a lot of college production, again, due to the injuries, but again, that's the kind of guy I'm happy to take a flyer on in the 7th round. Like,
yeah,
why not?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You bet that Bellinger's concerned. You can believe that.
Yeah,
he's concerned about his roster spot. Trust me on that one. What else we got?
So this kind of goes kind of hand in hand a bit with the explosive offense.
Okay.
What about an explosive defense? So recently, ESPN has begun releasing these articles discussing like NFL executives anonymously, ranking top 10 in each position group.
Am I gonna like this conversation? Am I gonna like this, or am I gonna be themed?
I think you're gonna like it.
Okay.
I think it's mostly been fair. Number 1 defensive tackle, Dexter Lawrence. And Brian Burns was the number 1 honorable mention for the edge rushers.
Honorable mention. Okay.
Which, to me, you know what? That's fine. I mean, comparing, like the top edge rushers, it went like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons. Then you had Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, Trey Hendrickson was up there. Jared Verse, I remember, was number 10. And there was like 1 or 2 other guys. But I think having Brian Burns just outside the top 10 is fair. But this also kind of corresponds to a bit of what another thing that we were kind of going to talk about. Every day that gets closer, these betting sites and everything, the books are open. You can take season long, like projection wagers. And I think right now, Brian Burns is projected number 1 sack guy on the Giants. And for me, the conversation, I think, has to start with Dex. But I think, Brian Burns leading the team in sacks, that's who I would pick. I think one of the best things about Abdul Carter coming in, as many people discussed, is, all right, you've got your choice. You're going to leave Dex one-on-one? You can't do that. You're going to double Dex? Okay, then, particularly when they're all out there, that means Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter are all in one-on-ones. And I think Brian Burns is better than Kayvon, more refined. I mean, he's in his prime, compared to Abdul Carter. And so I think teams are going to be doubling Dex a lot, and I think that's going to leave Brian Burns the most capable of, beating his guy one-on-one. So my long-winded way of saying, I think Burns is, gonna shoot up that list this year. I think he could break into the top 10. I easily see him reaching double-digit sacks. I think Burns, again, barring any health concerns, I think Brian Burns could have a 12-13 sack season. I think he's going to put himself in that top 10 conversation as more than just an honorable mention.
Okay. I don't really have a dispute with that. He had 8.5 sacks last year, and many of us felt like the defense, although I saw improvement, and there's actually statistical evidence that they improved, many of us felt disappointed in some of the things that we saw. From game to game, we felt like there was some drop-off. Kayvon was hurt for a minute, so we got to factor that part in. But he had 8.5. It's not a big stretch to see him get double digits. I think that's definitely a possibility. I'm shocked a little bit by the whole thing with the ranking. I won't spend time there, but all right. Trey Hendricks had 17.5 sacks. So he shouldn't be on the fringe in that conversation, period. As it pertains to Burns versus Bosa, this is not biased. I'm looking at the numbers, the actual numbers from last year. Per game, Burns did better than Bosa did. So how is he behind him? I don't get that, but what I attribute that to is what I've been seeing. You mentioned it a little earlier about the lack of respect for the Giants. Excuse me. If it's not the power rankings that are just wow. How do you have us? That's a whole different topic anyway. But how do you have the Giants so low after all the moves that they made? How do you have that? So it's just a lot of bias and stuff too. But I like Burns there. Sacks. I don't know if Abdul Carter is going to have. I'm not going to say he's going to not have a lot of sacks. I think he will. But being a sack leader, it's really a gamble for me to say yes, it's going to be him. I really don't know. I don't know how he's going to be used. Seems as though on the depth chart he's been slotted in as a top guy, which it wasn't like that last week. So that happened sometime this week. He was slotted in as the starter. Doesn't mean a lot right now, but that's where he is right now. So I found that very interesting. At the same time, that gives him more opportunities if he is a starter. But I like your Burns pick. I think we're agreeing today, man. So we're kind of hot on the roll with this one. I think Burns is going to be your, like I said, 8.5 sacks. He wasn't far from it. Right situation. Perhaps games that they were more in. That number is easily 10, 11 last year. So I think this is time for him to shine. You know what? Personally, I think he should want that. Because there had been some talk and some questions about last year and about him and whether the Giants made a good deal with the Panthers. He needs to come, fired up. I think the defense will be fired up. And we'll talk about that some more once we get there. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Burns is the sack leader.
I disagree that Burns belongs in Nick Bosa conversations, at least right now.
That's why he got him beaten. Stat wise, if you talking about last year's stats, it's all we're talking about.
If we're purely talking last year, hold on. I need to bring up Brian Burns stats. From last year. Let's see. Last year, Burns had 71 combined tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 18 QB hits, 8.5 sacks. Bosa had 52 combined tackles, 24 QB hits, 15 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. So Burns had more tackles, but that's about it. I mean, Bosa's had health issues much more than Burns had. Burns has had one kind of elite season, and that was his 2022 season, 12.5 sacks, 63 combined tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 22 QB hits, named a Pro Bowler. But, I mean, 2022, Nick Bosa was Defensive Player of the Year. He received MVP votes.
This ain't an all-time conversation, though. This is just last year, right?
Yeah, I know, but these lists, it's not just based off of last year. Like when these execs are putting these lists together, it's kind of like a cumulative thing. Like I don't think there's science to it.
Okay.
Now again, if we're talking purely just last year, then I think Burns, had a very strong season, better than maybe a bunch of people are going to give him credit for. Which is why I think I was pleasantly surprised that he was the first guy listed in the honorable mentions. I don't know if it was alphabetical or not. I didn't really look beyond that. I'm not gonna lie, but but I saw him listed there.
That's something to be. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad he's on the list. I think he deserves it.
If they're ranking him the 11th best edge rusher, hey man, I'm down with that. I'm down to have the number 1 defensive tackle, the 11th best edge rusher, with opportunity to move into the top 10. And I think this is another group that we're going to be talking about plenty over the rest of the summer, but if our secondary can hold up, which I think has been very strongly bolstered, with the additions of Adebo and Javon Holland, then that just means that extra half a second, whatever that these guys have the wide receivers locked up and the quarterback can't throw the ball. That's another second for Dexter Lawrence to get home, for Brian Burns to get home, to not necessarily stat pad, but get those numbers up. And that's got to be something that has to be taken into account when looking at this team. Like I think this defense overall can be a top 10 unit. And, I think we have what might be the best defensive line in football. I think we have an above average just linebacking core with Okereke and McFadden leading the way there in the middle. I think Xavier McKinney is a better safety than Javon Holland, but if Javon Holland gets back to how he was a little over a year ago, then that is an elite level safety.
Oh yeah.
Tyler Nubin looked solid last year. Phillips looked solid last year. We have these pieces for an elite defensive unit, and there's so much synergy, like almost parasitic codependence, between all the units, because if
parasitic codependence, let me write that down.
It's gonna make sense when I get talking, and you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about in a second. Like the secondary looks better if they're not giving up any passes because they're able to stand their guy for like 2 seconds, and then the quarterback's getting rushed. And if the defensive line is maybe not quite getting there as quickly, but the secondary is holding up, that allows the defensive line to get there and juice their numbers. Like when one is playing well, that just helps the other in a way, that more so than other units. Like it's harder to truly describe is the running game truly benefiting from an elite passing game? More often than not it is, but this is one of those ones that I think gets talked about a lot more, is like the relationship between pass rush and secondary. And I think we've gotten stronger in both units. So all this love is being shown to the defensive line, the edge guys, the pass rushers. But
Dexter Lawrence, I'm like, that's great.
I mean, it's hard not to when you've got the third pick in the draft, Abdul Carter, a blue chip edge rusher coming into a unit that already has Kayvon, another for top 10, top 5.
It's not hard. It's not hard for us, but the people who are doing these rankings, they don't seem to see this. They still got us like bottom feed. Like you can't be bottom feeders with the. I don't want to be a broken record, man. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah,
if the defense was horrible last year, I get it. But we weren't, and nobody talked about it. Numbers-wise, stat-wise, it was actually better. It was almost middle of the road in the league. Nobody's mentioning that stuff. And we added to it.
Season, before Dex got hurt and before Brian Burns started having to play through an injury, just the very start of when Brian Burns was playing through injury, we were leading the league in sacks, and everyone seems to forget that. But when people are putting these rankings together, it's not because they don't respect the defense; it's because they don't respect the offense. And it is an offensive game now, so I don't fall for that. That being said, obviously, I'm biased. We should probably be a bit higher up than a lot of people have.
There's some articles talking about the defense, man. There's quite a few of them, and they're saying that the move that we made defensively didn't make a difference. I don't understand that. How was Holland, Adebo, and Abdul Carter not make? So I want to go there and start raising my voice, but come on. Seriously.
Here's one thing that I'm gonna say that I doubt these writers, the people who made these articles, are having this thought process. But I'm wondering if, for maybe the people that do have this thought process, if they're thinking it's going to be like the 2019 versus 2020 Bucks, where the 2019 Bucks defense was middling, but they were starting every possession backed up in their own red zone already, because Jameis Winston was the first ever 30 for 30 quarterback. You know, the offense was so bad that it just put the defense in such bad holes that statistically they didn't look as good as they actually were. Then they get Tom Brady and look like one of the better teams of the last decade, because all of a sudden that offense is elite and the defense, you know, was able to, you know, just even rest for longer periods of time. In fact, that team wound up being so good that they ran it back entirely the same the next year, at least in terms of starters. So I don't think the writers are thinking, well, you know, for as good as this defense actually is, statistically, you know, and scoreboard wise, it's probably not going to look as good as maybe it should, because the offense is still going to be such a detriment to this team. Maybe one or two of them are thinking that. Most is probably just, man, it's the Giants. They're bums. They've been terrible for a decade plus. They have 2 playoff appearances, and those are the only 2 years that they've had winning records, you know, in the past. Well, since essentially 2011, you know, so
I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm hoping that we can move on to a topic change. but seriously though, I just got finished watching this. That's why it's so fresh in my mind. I just got finished watching our win over the Patriots in the 2011 Super Bowl. Right?
Good game.
That defense. It was a fantastic game, but there's a point I want to make about it. That defense was ranked 25th that year.
Yeah,
I saw. I ain't gonna name the players and disparage them, but there's some guys you know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That were on that defense, specifically at cornerback, that we talked about so much because they were just blowing things. They didn't look great at all. These guys were not only in the Super Bowl, they were actually in the big dance, and they actually won it with a 25th ranked defense. I thought that was important to share that. But we can go ahead and move on to the next topic whenever you're ready, brother.
JPP, he's talking about wanting to come back. Or I
You
haven't
like
seen
that?
too much. My thought
You like that
process
idea?
on that is the exact same that I had on Odell. I would love to see it. I would love for this former Giants great to come back, understand that they are nothing more than a depth piece, more of a player coach than anything else. Come in on a super cheap deal, team friendly deal, and if they get playing time and they can, Odell goes out there, catches a first down, JPP comes in, gets a big tackle for loss. Stadium loves it. Everybody loves it. Like that feel good movie type stuff. I would love that. But I know realistically, the Giants should allocate any and all dollars they have left to other places. So, as much as I would love to see it, I don't necessarily think it's the smartest thing. That being said, you can never have too many great edge rushers. Not that JPP is still great, but you know what I mean.
I only have one question for you. Then we can move on to the next topic. Just a question.
Okay.
Is JPP today better than Nunez Roches right now? Because if the answer to that is yes,
I don't
you pull
know.
a trigger on because we need to know, because honestly, there are a lot of questions about Roches right now. There were a lot of things that we've seen that were like, ooh, the only reason why he's right now in the top spot is because of I would say because there hasn't been anybody from behind him that's shown themselves just yet. So honestly, he's been, I mean, we all love him, call him Nacho and all that kinds of career highs and tackles and QB hits, but they still were looking for an upgrade this offseason. So what does that tell you? So if JPP is better than that, then that's a good thing. That's a good problem.
JPP hasn't done anything. He didn't do anything in 2023. Wasn't on a team in 2024. So my answer is I think Roches is probably better than him right now.
Oh God, okay. All right.
Like the last time he played was 2023. He was on two teams, New Orleans and Miami. He played in a combined 3 games where he had 2 total tackles, no QB hits, no tackles for loss, no sacks.
I forgot he was in both places.
Yeah, and the year before that, he was in Baltimore, 3 sacks, 26 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 QB hits. JPP hasn't been good since 2020, essentially.
Alrighty then. That's fine. That's fair.
Like, again, I would love it. Guy comes in, player coach essentially, making like $1 million.
Oh, brother.
I don't know if he's going to do that. I will say this, though. If he is, in fact, going to be retiring officially soon, give him that 1-day contract, let him retire a Giant. He deserves that. I want Odell to retire a Giant. I want JPP to retire a Giant.
You do?
I want, I don't know who else is out there right now in the league right now that could retire a Giant.
In the league, you better not say Eli Apple. I don't want to hear it.
No, not Eli Apple. Not Eric Flowers.
Especially in Eric Flowers. But yeah, that's all I got on that one. I think it's a nice nostalgia pick like we talked about with OBJ last week. But if he's not better than Roches, that's kind of the standard right now. A little bit I got to be better than Roches to get that top spot. And I'm kind of hoping for that, but we'll see how it all plays out, man. What else we got?
Well, this is something that I wanted to talk about. And that's this whole what is best for the team come training camp and preseason. The Rams kind of popularized, and Sean McVay in particular kind of popularized this whole, go kind of lighter in the offseason. Starters don't really play at all in the preseason games. come in as fresh as possible. And they did that, then they won the Super Bowl. And since then, feels like every team's kind of copied that, except for the Chiefs. And the Chiefs are the team, of essentially the past 7-8 years now. But everyone else seems to have gone to this softer, lighter offseason. And that includes the Giants. The Giants aren't some super intense physical team in the offseason. And the past few years, it feels like they've barely played their starters in the preseason games. But do you think that needs to change? Do you think we should go back to being more of a tougher team in the offseason, risk these injuries, possible more injuries, or do we keep things as they are, even if they haven't necessarily been haven't exactly seen the best results from that?
Man, that's a fantastic question, man. If ever there was a split, a 50-50 split, I think this is where it would show up. Because I look at, and when I watch old tape, which I try to do that pretty often, especially of the Giants in their heyday when they win championships. I know Tom Coughlin was a stickler about hard work. And I always respected that. I felt like it was par for the course when it comes to being a New York team / New Jersey, playing in the Mecca. That kind of attitude, it felt like, this is just my personal opinion. There's a lot of things that happened in the Super Bowls, but I feel like that work ethic, that mindset helped them do the impossible, not once, but twice. If they were light in the off season or in the preseason, I don't know that they would have had the drive or the engine to do what they did leading into a Super Bowl. The win against the Packers, the win against the Cowboys. Those wins were like, seriously, they grinded wins out. They fought at the line of scrimmage and won in a lot of instances and played smart, heady football. I mean, that's X's and O's stuff, but I feel like that, that mindset Tom Coughlin instilled it. When he left, the whole situation with that, I went into mourning. I'm not even gonna lie about it. I went in the morning. I'm like, man, I feel like somebody died. I'm like, you're gonna replace him with who? What's the name you're gonna replace him with that's gonna bring that kind of respect for the game on top of that, and gets respect from players league wide, and has insane work ethic and cares about the details. All the coaches that we had since, can you find somebody who fits that description? Since then, I struggle to do that. So to answer your question, I kind of like the idea of more intensity and guys fighting and gutting it out. I mean, think about this pre-53-man roster cuts that's going to be happening. What kind of attitude do you want to have when these guys are basically fighting for their jobs? You might as well go ahead and have the intense physical off train. I mean, I'm sure there has to be some kind of leeway with that. They have to be on 10 per se, but at least 8.5, 9 at least. These guys are fighting for their jobs, and you want to find out who the best guy is. Here's my question for you, to bounce the ball back to you. Can you find out who those guys are with the more modern approach? Can you find out who those guys really are with the lighter approach? Because me personally, I don't think you can. You need some fire to see what guys are made of. If guys aren't fighting each other, I'm concerned, like, man, we kind of light in the behind here. We kind of soft here. So that's going to be concerning for me. Anybody that's a diehard fan that has seen those years, they probably feel the same way I do. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think, the Giants have always had this identity of being a tough football team. Like, they're a team that when you think of them, you think defense. You think hard-nosed, tough, violent, we're going to hit you, we're going to punch you in the mouth and, knock the plan out of you. And you need tough guys. You need some crazy guys And you're going to find those guys that are going to put their life on the line. Now, obviously, when, you don't want them going freaking psychotic in the offseason.
No.
But you do want that intensity. You want to see that fire. And you're going to see a lot more of that when things, get a little harder, a little more physical in the offseason. Who's going to fight? Who's going to stand up for that quarterback? Like someone, hits Russ a little late or Jackson Dart a little late because they're caught up in the moment. What offensive lineman is going to come in and just start fighting him? And that's the kind of stuff you want to see. That's what you need in a football team. And I agree. I think what they need to do is I think they need to go back.
And just one more quick thought. That's saying where if you're kind of playing slow or playing soft, you have more of a propensity to get hurt. That's not a lie. That's a real thing. If you're dogging it, especially those ACL injuries, those things can happen a lot more, especially the non-contact ones. I'd rather than play hard, be tired, have a good workout, come back tomorrow and do it again. But so that light approach, it could be a modern thing. Maybe we will see how it plays out. I know you mentioned the Chiefs, so that could be an exception to the rule, perhaps. But I want to see what these guys are doing. So I'm excited about the preseason to kind of see what kind of approach they're taking. But if that's the trend for the league, I'm a little bit concerned if that's the trend. I'm not sure that's great, but go ahead, man. We can keep moving.
So let's see. I mean, I think we tackled a lot of the main things that were kind of in the headlines this week. The only other thing that I think was particularly notable was Eli kind of stepping away from the ownership thing. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know why he was involved in that in the first place. Again, ownership money is different than NFL money.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, basketball money is different than football money. And LeBron James,
$7.5 billion about.
Yeah, LeBron James has made more money from basketball than I think any other player has just from the contracts. And, combine that with all of the other stuff he's going on. He's not even really a big player in the ownership game. I don't know what Eli was, what group Eli was working with. I don't know what Strahan's doing. I know Strahan's made some good money since retiring, but ownership money, that we're not talking millions anymore. We're talking billions with a B. That stuff goes crazy. I
think most of us didn't think about the billion part. I think we were thinking million as opposed to billion. I don't think we thought about that. We thought about the nostalgia, having Eli, somebody who has name recognition, probably doesn't have to pay for a meal in New York whatsoever at any point in time. I'm saying, to have him being behind the scenes with his eye working on our behalf, talent-wise, evaluations, probably thought, you know what? Him being back there makes the team better. I know that's what I thought. But I didn't think about the money. I'll be honest. I didn't even go and dig that deep. I saw the numbers today. I'm like, oh, wow. Eli's wife ain't going to let him do this. It's like, no way. We're talking about a 1% stake, which is about $10 billion. That number is humongous. I mean, I don't know what he has. I'm not trying to check his pockets, but $10 billion to have a 1% stake. It's like you don't even have a majority stake. We're just talking about 1%. So that shows you how popular and how highly evaluated our football team is, which is a good thing. But 1% is $10 billion, man. My God. There was no way. I'm like, he had no shot. Not by himself. And we would have a whole bunch of guys in this consortium to make this kind of move because it was just not happening, man. But it was a nostalgia thing. He's not going to be involved now. It's all good. He comes to the games and to the locker room and speaks to the players like Strahan and Justin Tuck did recently. I forgot who else came in there, but we got that. Hopefully it helps. And, hey, we keep the train moving, man.
Facts. Like again, I mean, I didn't even think that was much of a story when I first came out. I was like, oh, that's cool. Neither of them's getting it. Neither of them.
It felt good though. It felt good. It felt good.
It would have been fun. I will say that. Again, I
I
was
mean,
rooting for Eli over Strahan because Strahan waved that Eagles flag. Can't be doing that.
let's be real. If we can get some guys to come, for example, I don't know when this is. I'm just speculating. I'm just throwing a name in my head. I haven't heard anything, didn't read anything. But imagine if Brandon Jacobs came and said, you know what, he wants to be in the game on the sidelines, and an opportunity came for him to be the running backs coach of our team. Giants Nation would lose their lunch with excitement. They'd be crazy. If Tiki Barber did the same thing, he wouldn't because of what he's doing now. No need to. But if he did that, the Giants Nation would go crazy. Any kind of nostalgia guys that love this team like we do and want to come and help us. So that was my feeling when I heard about Eli. I didn't think anything logical about it. I didn't think about the money. I didn't think about any of that stuff. It was like, you know what? Him being a part of this team again brings back good feels, man. So I want more of that. It's been a long time between good feels. Wouldn't you agree?
Too long.
It's been almost 15 years. I'm not even counting 2022. I can't. I tried to, even when it was happening. I'm like, I just kind of feel like we kind of skated to this. But you know, it's been almost 15 years without good feels. So I was looking forward to that. Just for that reason only, not for the whole realistic, logical reason. But it's all good though, man. What else we got in the plate? We talking about this Dane Bolton situation, or we good, man? Because
I think we're good. I don't think there's too much to say about Dane Belton. He's not going to be a starting safety. He's a good player.
No.
I like him to death, but I don't think there's too much to say about him.
Do you like how the secondary is being discussed and talked about though? Because to me, I feel like
I said earlier, I think they aren't getting necessarily the most amount of love, but I think, you know, it's kind of hard to be getting a ton of love when, you know, who's the focus of the defensive line? Dex, Burns, Abdul, Kayvon, Alexander, you know, when you got all of that going on, you know, you're not going to get too much love. And quite frankly, I don't think the secondary is truly as established. You know, we got to see, can Javon Holland bounce back? We're going to have to see, is Paulson Adebo healthy? We're going to have to see, is Deonte Banks going to play better now that he's CB2, not CB1? You know, there's still a lot of question marks in that secondary. So I think some of the skepticism surrounding them is perfectly fine and justified. But I do think anybody who acts like this isn't going to be an improved unit is crazy.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot of that stuff, but we ain't gonna spend too much time giving them a whole lot of play. But something's wrong if you could look at and say that with a straight face. Something's seriously wrong. But for me, I kind of just, you know, I want to just kind of round the show out with this. I know I was talking about the power rankings earlier and my obsession with the 53-man roster. I'm going to put the 53-man roster obsession on hold for right now. I'm still thinking about it. I'm looking at this depth chart like, man, what's going to happen here? Who's going to step up? But in my mind, the power ranking thing, we're really low and we really shouldn't be. I don't think it's justified. I think that media coverage and the fans, it feels like, and maybe this is not indicative of the diehard fan base, maybe it's just the other guys, the other people, but it just feels like, you know what, if we don't make a big name splash, we don't care, or we're not doing, you know, right by the team. But historically, that's not even how we won. The guys that named you remember, they weren't splashes. They became legendary, if you will, because of what they did on the field. Ahmad Bradshaw's a name. I'll never forget him. I'll never forget what he did for this team. Tiki Barber. I'll never forget it. Brandon Jacobs. Amani Tuma. I'll never forget what he did for this team. David Tyree. Those guys wasn't no big names coming out of David wasn't even a big name coming out of college, but the whole fan base was electric, excited about him until he got injured, and then that was a wrap. You know what I'm saying? But there's so many names that came out in the past, even the past 11 years of drafts. I mean, we had Odell in 2014. We had Justin Pugh in 2013. They became super important to our championship hopes during that time. I mentioned Wilson. He was in 2012. Landon Collins, who was with us for a while. I believe he came back for a little while too. 2015. You know what I'm saying? You got, Sexy Dexy 2019. McKinney in 2020. So we got names that they weren't even like big names. I'm like, I don't know why people are expecting us to do that now when that was never really our thing. We had guys that stepped up that were just super talented. They were coached well, and they overachieved when it mattered. So it's like these rankings and stuff. I'm gonna make it a point to not get caught up in these rankings anymore and keep my BP down. There's no point in getting into this stuff. They're not looking at it with logic. They're looking at it kind of like, oh, this was just last year. But with other teams, they project. They look at like what you're about to do, what you can potentially do because of who's on your team. But with the Giants, though, and other teams too, but I see with the Giants mostly, they go by what happened last year. And then they kind of judge us like, until you prove me wrong, I'm going to keep you down here at 24 and 29 and 27 and whatnot in our power rankings. It's not we don't have to be fair, but it's not equitable with all the teams. They don't do it the same way. So that's my spiel on that, man. I'll let you go ahead and close us out, brother.
I'm going to say this. We are in the slowest part of the NFL season / off season.
The slowest part?
There is going to be a lot of lists. There's going to be a lot of talk. There's going to be a lot of people kind of making up nonsense. And most of that is going to be dismissive, to say the least, of the New York Giants. I think for our sake, all of our listeners' sake, all Giants fans' sake, it is best to just ignore that. Unless it comes out that a player is injured or there's this crazy trade for all of a sudden, like Steelers had with Ramsey for Minka. The Giants are just hopefully going to have a quiet, productive offseason. They are going to
quiet and productive.
They are going to work hard, and that is all that I want from them. So that way, like your blood pressure, mine can also stay lowered.
We're gonna try to keep them both low. I'm not sure if that's going to be easy or not, but I think until we get to the place where they're playing actual games, we should be okay. That's kind of my hope on this. If we get blown up before the games even start, it's not going to look good for our 18-game season for us. We're in big time trouble on this show and off, if that's what's happening. So I'm hoping that we relax, take things in stride, and hopefully our team does well, because we could use a New York sports team that's doing well.
Mm-hmm.
We could use that. The Yankees are dying right now, so we get to show.
Yankees are dying. Knicks have made some good moves. I've liked what they've done this offseason.
Yeah, I like what's happening. They got about $3 million left. I hope they spend it well. Do something else. We need another wing. If we can get another wing, then I'd be really happy.
Another wing.
Right now, I'm marginally happy. But great show, man. Any closing thoughts, brother?
No, sir.
Well, let me just tell you, man. Let me just say this to you, man. This is not to get sentimental. Just to tell you this, man. This has been a dream come true for me to do this. You never in the podcasting world, you never know how long you're gonna be doing stuff. I've had guys that I roll with for some years, and then things just change, man. But I want you to know up front, man, we haven't started our full season together yet. So we're going to be shooting text and analysis and all kinds of stuff and hot news. The communication between it's going to be epic level. But I want to say thank you for wanting to do this. It's been a fun ride in the off season so far. Mm-hmm. You helped make it fun. I'm looking forward to a great season from our Giants and talking to our fan bases and having some great guests come on the show, man. So thanks for doing what you do, brother.
Same
And
to you,
looking
man.
forward to a great season, brother.
Same to you.
Jess and Mr. You are out. Big Blue Lakers podcast. Don't miss it.